Welcome back. When it comes to your child's health, it is best to trust a doctor and not always follow your gut. Pali sat down with a medical practitioner to find out more about fevers in children.
Parents have the instinct to know when their child is not their usual self. The CEO of Travel Doctor Group, Dr. Albie de Frey, is here to unpack what fever is in children and how best to combat them. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much, Palesa. Great to be talking about this subject because, in fact, fever is one of the commonest symptoms that occur in children. And one of the most important reasons why people visit a doctor or a healthcare provider in some sort, very often after hours. I remember from my young days in casualties.
And when we are looking at this fever in children, what are some of the symptoms that parents need to keep an eye out for?
Well, you mentioned one of the most important ones. It's when your child is just not itself. In Afrikaans, we say the child is hangerig. It's just miserable. And small children very often can't say that they've got a fever. They will complain about abdominal pain, I've got a sore stomach, or they'll complain about a vague headache, or they may just not want to eat. There's loss of appetite. And they, as you said, just not their normal self.
And when we are looking at it, you know, sometimes people always start at home before seeking alternative help. How best can parents treat this fever at home?
Fever is actually a good thing, because fever is your body's defense against an infection. So if a kid's got a fever, he's probably got something going. There's a virus, there's maybe a bacteria, but most likely a virus going around. And so common stuff is what works. So don't overdress the child. Make sure that they drink lots and lots of fluids. Make sure that they keep hydrated. Maybe keep an eye on how often they go to the loo to make sure that that's well done. Don't stick them in bed and pile them with lots and lots of blankets because, you know, there's an old story about trying to sort of burn out a fever. That's not really a good idea. Cold sponges and a cold bath is the last thing you need to do. You don't want to make the kid shiver because you're actually going to push the temperature up. But what is important is not to let a child go to school or go to see friends if they have a fever, because they probably have an infection and we don't want them to spread that infection to other people.
Absolutely. And doctor, then if we look at pediatric ibuprofen, what makes this the best choice for treating fever in children?
Because the child's miserable and maybe they don't want to eat and they don't actually want to drink, that's when we will divert to something like a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, of which pediatric ibuprofen has been tried and tested for many, many years and is very safe to be used in children.
Now, doctor, at the end of the day, we don't want our little ones feeling under the weather. So how best can parents avoid their children coming down with a fever?
We can't avoid them getting infections. Remember, that's all part of growing up. And a fever is actually your defense mechanism. It says there's a bug and the body is trying to kill that bug and get rid of it. There are certain danger signs, though, that we have to look out for. So if the child is vomiting, if it's got a stiff neck, if it has seizures, if the fever lasts for more than 3 days, or if the temperature comes and goes repeatedly. And because we live in Africa, we absolutely have to say it. If there's been any travel history to a malaria risk area, or even if you haven't traveled, just always think about the possibility of malaria. For the rest, good home care, tender loving care, a little bit of extra attention from mom, lots of fluids, and if necessary, a good syrup like ibuprofen will do the trick.
Now, doctor, mom and dad have tried their best at home and they have truly poured in, hoping that this fever or what might be underlying might be lifted, but the fever still is not going away in the kid. When should they seek a doctor's help?
A rash, severe vomiting, diarrhea, stiff neck, severe photophobia when they don't want to open their eyes, can't look into light. That's the time to maybe top them up with a little bit of syrup and ibuprofen syrup and then take them off to the doctor.
Thank you once again, doctor, for joining us here on Afternoon Express.
It was a pleasure being here.
Remember, fever is the body's natural response to infection, and while it can be distressing, trust your instincts and seek professional help when needed. There's nothing worse than when your little one is in pain. Speak to your pharmacist about the original ibuprofen. Brufen, brutal to pain, kind to you.